Hello everyone, it's Esper. Welcome. I'm wanting to do a number of videos that delve into advanced GMing techniques for Dungeons & Dragons or your tabletop role-playing game of choice. So in this one, we're going to be looking at some really good ways to set up walls in a virtual tabletop, or VTT walling. I've got this map here. It's actually a map that I recently put on my Patreon. I like doing dungeon maps like this that have some really cool looks to the walls and floors even, and then have these like dark spaces that represent the unknown or just solid interior of the walls. So at the moment I have no walling set up at all. So this character can actually just see through the entire dungeon, which is not very realistic. Now we can set up some basic walls here, which are going to block sight, movement, and even sound. The problem with the basic walls is that it has now blocked off the sight of the map. You can't see the really cool wall masonry or whatever other images or graphics you have there. So it really kills the aesthetics. Who wants to just see, the solid black walls, and you've killed much of the look of the dungeon. So what some people recommend is that you actually stagger back the wall, like the VTT walling line a bit, so that it's not actually taking up the space right up next to the actual, line work of the dungeon walls, and you can get to see a bit of those really cool graphics and get to see the aesthetic of the dungeon. So from the player's perspective, this does look better. I can now see a decent amount of the walls, but there are some problems still. One is that the character can see, or the player can see, through the corners. So that doesn't make any sense. Why could he see through the solid, wall stone of these corners? And if I have a monster that's lurking there, he can see a monster that the actual character wouldn't be able to see. And it still hurts the aesthetic a little bit because, it's still cutting through some of the actual image of the walls. And here I've gone and made this nice fade effect, which I like to do in my dungeon maps. So it's still cutting out part of the beauty of the map. Another thing that's weird is that the character token can actually go inside the wall now, and he can actually cut through these corners like that, so that's a little bit wonky. This isn't a bad technique, but it's not great either. I'd give it, maybe a B tier. Now you do have some other types of wall options. You could do invisible walls, and you could set them right here at the actual line work of the wall, and so you could see through, but the problem is that it's fully invisible, so you'd still see the entire dungeon. You could do terrain walls, and sometimes that is a good choice, but it's not a good choice for the general walls, because what terrain walls does is it lets you see through one wall, but it blocks out sight through two of them. So it's good for like freestanding objects like a boulder or a tree or a column. If you set up terrain walls for the general dungeon walls, you're going to get a weird situation like this, where he can actually see through much of the walls and see like where the other rooms are and kind of what the shape of the dungeon is. Things that a character shouldn't be able to see. You shouldn't be able to see like, oh, the shapes of the next rooms over, and be seeing through like half of the walls. So this is where the advanced technique comes in. There's an advanced technique that you can do, which is going to solve these problems and make things both look really good and make sense and block off things that the players shouldn't be able to see. The downside is that it takes more time to set it up, and it can take quite a bit of time. Once you get better at it, you can go faster, but it still does take the time. Because of that, I don't use this for just every map. I especially don't use it for maps that need to be just simple and fast. But if it's a map that's kind of more important or more special, or maybe I'm going to reuse it, like a dungeon module that will be replayed by multiple people, then I think it is worth it. So what you want to do is to first set up invisible walls here on the actual, map line work of the walls. I'm just doing a portion of this for now. So you can see I've got the invisible walls set up, and that is going to prevent the token from moving through solid walls. Then you're going to go to basic walls. You could also use ethereal walls, which block sight but not movement. Both of those are fine. And you're going to set up that second layer here on the other side of the fade, the other side of this dark fade. And this is going to block the sight in areas where the character and the player wouldn't be able to see, wouldn't be able to know yet. We're making progress, but we're not quite there yet, because you see there's still these areas where there isn't the black interior, and the player / character should not be able to be seeing through these walls. So we're gonna have to set up basic walls just in the middle of that, like this here and I try to make it follow pretty well the line work lines, the invisible wall lines. So from the player / character's perspective, aha, now we are just seeing what the actual character could see. But we're not quite there yet because look at this. The character is able to still see through these corners. What do we do with these corners and doors and such? You want to go in and you want to put a diagonal basic wall, or ethereal wall would work, here at the corners where a character would not be able to see through a corner. And here is what that looks like. See, I can't see on the other side of that corner. There could be something hiding there. Okay, now I look around. And as long as you set up the lines in like nice, clean, geometrical angles, aesthetically it looks good. Depending on the complexity of the map, this can take a while, so it is a bit more of a time-consuming and advanced technique. Here's what this entire dungeon looks like when I have it set up in this way. So as you can see, I've done quite a bit of walling, and even here in these more organic shapes, I'll put in these lines that block out where someone would not, if they were standing here, wouldn't be able to see through that outcropping. I've set up these ethereal walls here that don't block movement, but you're not going to be able to see down these stairs unless you're close enough to them. Like the characters here in this corridor, if he's back there, he's not going to be able to see down the stairs into this chamber, but if he comes right here to the foot of the stairs or to the edge of the stairs, then he can see down below. Here I've got doors set up, locked and unlocked, and if it's a very important map, you'll walk the character token through it. Go walking along and make sure there aren't gaps anywhere. Sometimes there are little accidental gaps and like, oh, I can see through this little crack in a wall through like into the next dungeon room over, and you want to avoid things like that. So you'll walk the token through and just make sure everything looks as it should be looking. And look at that. It looks beautiful. You can still see all of the wall that you're supposed to be seeing. It doesn't kill the aesthetic, and it also works to serve the fog of war and terrain blocking purposes. Here's the terrain wall that I mentioned that are good for like freestanding structures. So if I put them there, yeah, it looks like that. You can see this like little wall section, but you can't see what is behind it. Or for these little rock formations over here, it's the same thing. Have it set up with the terrain walls. And there, he can't see what's on the other side of that rock formation, but he knows it's that rock formation. You can basically get the gist of the whole size of it, just like in real life. If you see a freestanding, boulder or a tree stump or a car, you can get what the entire object is. That's not a mystery, but you just can't see what's behind it. So I hope that was helpful for you. I am a big advocate for theater of the mind. I don't think you always need dungeon maps and VTT stuff. I'm a big advocate for simple VTT usages and quick, simple maps, but I can't deny that doing a map this way does have some really cool upsides. And for certain very important and especially very complex tactical scenarios, this really can be a next level experience for the players. If you're interested in getting these maps and supporting the channel, consider becoming a patron over on my Patreon page. That's Esper the Bard on Patreon. I do monthly content, newsletter, maps, drawings of patrons to get exclusive rewards, and I'm always putting out content here on the YouTube channel. So thank you everybody who supports me there. You really put wind in the sails of this vessel. I want to give an extra special thank you to Lucas Mesmo, Modern Patron, Adam Wood, Nick Thy Pirate King, Jared Primont, Locke, Nicholas A., Technicolor Shale, Robert Brashini, Ben R., Tilwrench, Tornado, Agile Monk, James from KC, and Sassy Cat Productions. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, I'll see you in another video sometime soon, and may your adventures be many.